When it comes to EVE Online, every player wants to know the most effective tactic available. You want to know the meta. The meta controls everything. It determines what will and will not happen. Knowing the meta will alter your views, make you question your reality. It might even make you laugh. And now, you're part of it. You're watching The Meta Show.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Meta Show on the 2nd of March 2025. Today, joining me, we have Keith Stone as the guest co-host, and we have our special guest YoungPuke joining us to talk about Low Sec and what's going on there, as well as that rather funny name. So, Keith, if you want to say a little about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me. It's first time being on a show, but definitely looking forward to hanging out today. A little bit about me, just my history in EVE. For those of you who know me, I mostly come from the small gang nano world. Flew around with Rokapel for a few years. Mostly recently came from United Federation of Conifers. My expertise, I guess you could say, is that small gang, mid-sized gang content. Came over to the big block world here recently, a few months ago, to hang out with Dave and some friends, longtime friends that I've had in the game and outside in real life, and wanted to kind of experience that. So getting a taste of that right now, and having an opportunity here to talk and hang out some low sec stuff.
Okay.
Conifers kill the garden. They do kill the garden, but they're great. They give a lot of oxygen. That's what I hear. Don't get Darius, by the way, started on how good conifers are.
Anyway, Pete, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, so I am YoungPuke2. I have been a boy probably for most of my EVE career. I started out in Aderon Robotics, basically. Before that, I started a little bit before that in Just K. And then flash forward, I went to NullSec, into NSH, done Low Sec piracy all throughout since then. Co-founded an alliance called Sedition a few years back, and now I'm here. We restarted Sedition with the Uprising expansion, and we are kicking ass, taking names, and we're having fun. And I'm also a CSM rep, which never thought that would happen, but that's pretty cool experience so far.
Okie dokie. I have a quick housekeeping thing about INN to go through. So, first things first, Meta Show is finalizing its hosts for season 6. For the season 6 run of the show, we have a survey that we would like you all to fill out at the end to tell us how you think the co-host Keith has done. Please no trolling. You know who I mean. We're also looking at changing up our variety content that we have on the channel, so other games. And we would like to know what you guys would like to see on our channel and what we deliver aside from Eve. We'll still be doing Eve, but it's always good to have a bit of variety in your life. So that poll is right there. Let us know what you think, what you want to see. And finally, we are recruiting people to help us produce the streams. So help with the back end. So I'm not running around 15 minutes before the show trying to get cameras right and such. We're looking for Eve streamers and variety streamers. So if you are a streamer or you know any streamers who would like to help out with any of those roles, let us know. I was actually telling one particular person not to troll. He knows who he is. Okay, with
Don't want
that,
to name any names.
let's get into our top story. Okay, so let's get this ball rolling. So, as said before, YoungPuke, I have never lived anywhere other than null. So, in your opinion, what is low sec for? What is the purpose of it?
If you want to PvP, low sec is the place to be. That is it. So low sec is, I would argue, is the best place for PvP content generation in the game. We're getting dread brawls now every week, about like every 2 weeks, I would say. 500 bill plus dread brawls, faction warfare. People are fighting each other. They're undocked, living close with one another, and even null sec is coming to low sec to get content. Um, I think that just shows you the power of the content generation of low sec. There are multiple conflicts that are ongoing that I think doesn't have as much publicity. The war between Big AB and Shadow Cartel is one. There's also conflicts that were happening in Pravi block and various other areas, which low sec groups are fighting in Pravi. Frat has an influence in low sec as well. But essentially, if you want PvP content, you go to low sec. That is the place to be. So
Why PvP content in low sec though? Because I mean, I spent a lot of time flying around with null sec, could find plenty of content low and null sec though. But why would I want to go to low sec? Because Puke, I mean, I'll tell you first and foremost, like one of my most irritating things is like, man, I got to worry about sec status, or I'm trying to fight on a gate and I forget about gate guns, and then I die to something stupid on a gate. So, like, in your opinion, what do you think is like the biggest advantage to PvP in low sec compared to like any other part of the game?
the biggest, that's a fantastic question. The biggest reason is everybody is so tightly close together, it breeds conflict. So everybody basically lives within a mid or two of each other, whether you're Snuff, whether you're Big AB, whether you're Fleet, whether you're Sedition, whether you're Shadow. It doesn't matter what group you are. You are living under somebody's umbrella. We live in Secede. We live in direct capital range of Turner, which is Big AB. At the same time, we live in direct capital range of Fleet. Why do we do this? It's because we get content, right? They're 3 jumps away from me. I don't need to take Ansiblex's God knows how many jumps, 30 minutes to get a fight, versus I can anchor an Astra House in my home system, and I know I'll get a Dread Brawl out of it. And that's the beauty of low sec, is that because content and people are living so tightly close together, it naturally breeds conflict. And in null sec, it's very difficult at times because you can have fights over your border regions or floodplains, but without it, it can be very difficult sometimes to have that consistent mid-scale to large-scale fight. And I
Do you
mean,
think like?
no, sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there. So like I'm reading the chat. Somebody was saying low secers are afraid of bubbles. Are you afraid of bubbles? Like, would you
I
care if there
love
were bubbles in
bubbles,
low
dude.
sec?
And when
Okay.
Secede is an insurgency system, we push that shit up to Corruption 5 and we fucking bubble camp all day. It is so much fun. Like, that's the thing. Like, it's not scary. Like, we had our Dread Brawl fight over our whatever content Astra, and it was a Corruption 5 system. Like, who cares? It's a video game, right? Like, throw down, have fun, live a little.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
I've camped many battlefields, I think, when I lived in Turner. So definitely can see some advantages of low sec. I think it's gonna bring us to kind of a next question for you, man. Like, what is, like, we talked a little bit about it here with some of the conflicts you're talking about with Big Ab, that kind of thing, but what is the current state of low sec? If I were to go into low sec right now, and maybe I'm a small group and I'm like, hey, I want to see where I want to base out of. Do I go to NPC null? Do I go to low sec? What can they expect if somebody were to move into low sec right now?
I would, if you are a small group, and let's like define small, I would say under 100 active characters, right?
Yeah.
Like on Zkill, right? If you're like a smaller low sec group, um, I would go Fac War. Fac War is the easiest opportunity for day-to-day content. Literally before this talk, we killed, I think, like 20 Vexers on a way to a battlefield to run the battlefield, right? Like, it's stuff like that. It happens day to day. People are undocked. They're naturally PvPing. And I would join a faction warfare side or a piracy side.
The smaller groups that need shoutouts, though, are like Amar and Galente. They are the two smaller faction warfare groups. But I would enlist them. Get involved. Learn their communities. See if you fit in. And if I'm a low sec faction warfare group and I'm not interested, unless I'm not interested as much in faction warfare, you don't have to do just fac war. Right now, there's 3 big low sec groups. There's Shadow Cartel, which is the biggest low sec group in the game right now. Don't clip that Shadow Cartel and put it as an advertisement. That's the only compliment you're going to get. And the second biggest is Big AB by numbers per capita. That's what I'm saying. And the third is probably snuffed out, I think, per numbers, general members, I think. And those are the big low sec blocks, right? Then you have other groups like RC, Wrecking Crew, which is RC, or Fleet, or Sedet, Hobos, or TD Sen, or you have all these other like little smaller low sec groups generally that are, they tend to have relationships with the bigger groups because while the big, bear, the Cares like to call Big AB daddy, when the big boys like to throw down, people sort of choose a side. And so basically you have these pseudo like groups fighting each other in low sec. Nobody's really blue. But it's like, you fight each other. The culture is you fight each other one day, then shoot each other the next. So it's people will fight on the same side. We used to fight on certain people's sides. Now we're on other sides. It's the nature of the game, how it intends. It's not like a coalition, like blocks, but it's more like, hey, this is where the content is. Oh, I'm shooting you over this Astra house. Oh, now we're defending your Astra house the next day. That's sort of the mentality of low
So
sec.
you could
Or that's what it should be.
you could say it's ever evolving. And I've seen a little bit of that in the past when I've had to defend structures in low sec for the high sec corps of goons, where I've had certain low sec groups attack it, and then other ones have come to assist me, and then a day later, I'm fighting against the people that helped me the day before.
Yeah.
Which I think is really great. It breaks the monotony, I would say, from the little experience of low sec I've got.
Yeah, and plus what's great about low sec, it's so easy to move around compared to null. Like your guys' gun move was like super impressive. Like this is like logistically to move that many people from Delve to and to reconquer all these areas and do it, like it's such an organizational task. I need to take 2 mids to get to my new home. It is so much easier, right? And so I think lowsec has a lot of freedom because of that safety net that null does not have, and I'll give you guys that. It's you lose your structures and soft null, you're done, so you're evicted, right? There's that risk. And null, like you can't get evicted from lowsec, you can't get evicted from a station. So it allows us, that sort of safety net allows us to be more, or it should allow you to be more risk-centric, as I like to put it. So
yeah,
so
and Puke, I'm reading the chat here in CCP. Somebody mentioned do you think CCP needs to create more conflict drivers in low sec? Like I can name a few, like battlefields, your low sec plexes for fac war, or some of your content drivers there, and there's a certain incident that happened on the Metanox when I was in Cone there with a good friend of ours who decided to self dread shooting a Metanox. What else can we see that drives some kind of conflicts in low sec and that part of space there?
Yeah, we just need Gavin to keep self-destructing himself. That's how
We
we get
do.
content.
That would be a great idea. Gavin self-destructing dreads
Yeah,
would be the answer.
So I think conflict drivers, I think Metanoxes need changes. Shocked, Pikachu, oh my god. I think that siphons need to come back. I think low sec siphons need to come. Whether you get a notification or not is up to debate. But if you're a big boy and you have 500 Metanoxes and they're totally unchecked, the previous counter gameplay to Athenors, right? Which groups like iRed, even Cones used to do, right? Very famously used to mine the big blocks Athenors under their noses, right? But with Metanoxes, you can't do that shit anymore. So you need siphons so the small groups can punch the fuck up, like enough. So siphons need to come back for Metanoxes to allow smaller groups to have counter gameplay, and so you can sort of punch up and steal from like these bigger empires, so to speak. That would be a fantastic conflict driver. Siphons brought tons of conflict, but there needs to be a counterbalance for smaller groups because
I was messaging a couple people last night about it. If you look at Metanoxes that have died in the game since Metanoxes have been introduced, the vast majority have died in low sec or MPC null areas, not proper SOV. They're not driving conflict in SOV. They're just gathering pure resources. The people that are battling it out are people like, I mean, if you look at Init and Shadow Cartel, they're duking it out in Syndicate. If you look at Cones were doing it too. You guys had a fantastic war against TD Sen for a few months fighting over Metanoxes. It's not blocks that are fighting over Metanoxes. It is mid-scale to larger mid-scale groups that are fighting over Metanoxes at that scale. So Z-kill numbers are there. You can look at it, but we need to get more conflict drivers for Metanoxes for sure.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, man, like this kind of leads us into kind of our next question for you, man. What is your like as the low sec CSM and that kind of thing? We talked a little bit about the siphons and your vision for low sec. Is there anything else that you feel like drives like what do you see the future that needs to happen in low sec to maybe drive more content there, make it maybe a little more popular? Who knows? You serve null sec as far as where everybody wants to be.
Yeah. So I think CCP has done I'm applauding CCP for trying to fix the terribleness of Equinox and Revenant. I think that was implemented poorly for Null, and they need to fix it and make sure that you guys your mining is fixed. One, which CCP Okami is taking ownership and showing due diligence, trying to fix those things. But I think the transition from Null needs to come back to low sec. Their faction warfare, as I like to say, the Havoc expansion was one content loop. The Uprising expansion was another content loop. They need a third loop to tie the two together, and Faction Warfare needs another expansion. It just does. It's not finished. There's lots of issues that the Low Sec and Faction Warfare community has been asking about. Fixing key issues in Battlefield. I have a document that I'm working on that if I'm able to publish, I'll publish it on Reddit. But basically, it's like these are the changes that we want to make as a backcore community and low sec community as well, that we are able to really push changes to drive more conflict. A lot of systems are just not polished in low sec, so things like level 5 missions have never been touched. They're just not really, or like ghost sites, like things or battlefields or ice heists, or like the way insurgencies works or plexes. There's like a laundry list of key things that are not really working that need to be either updated or iterated upon that would make the space more attractive, easier for alliances and corporations and individuals to make money, and to create more content then. Because low sec, I would argue to death, is the most is the riskiest space to live in other than K space. But the ISK per hour and the revenue or the resources gained is not enough. So
we have a
Yeah.
We have
Go
a
ahead, Dave.
thing in chat real quick on the note of resources gained about Metanox is saying that a lot of people leave them unchallenged. So Curse is used as an example for this. One thing that's currently going on in Curse, not talking about before, is Metanoxes are being killed. They're probably going unchallenged because it's a bit difficult to challenge them when goons could just pile dive you the second a fight starts because we want to kill
Correct.
stuff.
Yeah,
you
and
have
plus-
to look at the geography of things before you try and defend something.
Yes, but with Curse, I know you guys are glassing big ABs, Metanoxes. They can't obviously, I would say, contest goons, but they're getting content out of fighting Shadow Cartel. Like the Metanoxes for us, I'm not a part of Big AB, but I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I would say that they care more about the content than they're defending structures for the sake of defending structures. Those are expendable structures, right?
They've probably
like
paid themselves
they've been
off
probably
as well.
sitting there. Yeah, they probably paid themselves off. So they can use that trillion plus ISK they probably have made from holding Curse and Scalding to now fund their dreads for the next 6 months to a year. Right? Like it doesn't bother them. Like their goal as an alliance is to get content generation and put food in their mouths. If structures are not worth defending, then let them go. Like that's the idea.
Yeah, with the way the
But
Metanox,
I'm not- You gotta talk to Crimson about that. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but
With the way
that is what I would think.
with the way the Metanox destruction mechanic works and the timers and the way you got to repair it, honestly, I view them as more ammo than something you would defend. Purely because it's almost less painful to just anchor a new one. It's kind of like sometimes with an Answerplex, it's like, shall we sit here for ages defending this, or should we just put another one down afterwards? Like, you know, you got to weigh up that time cost, so to speak. And as I said, most Metanoxes pay themselves off if you're putting them on a smart moon in like no time at all, from what I've experienced and heard.
And I think
So they're really not something that you would be bothered about defending too much.
but here's the thing, right? Like, this is a big culture difference. A year ago, Big AB and Snuff threw down over 1.2 trillion ISK and Ignoitin for a Dread Brawl over a Metanox. Like, people just want to fight, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, if the fight is there, I think it's obviously the content will happen, right? But like, if you bring the full force of goons to curse and to glass it, they're not going to fight. But let's say you have a decent sized SIG that can equally contest Big AB, I think they would fight. But like, that's the thing. Like, we're not groups. Low sec groups are not afraid, I would say, to throw down for structures that financially don't make sense. People want to fight to the sake of fighting, not to just defend structures for no reason. People want to PvP. If I'm like defending structures and there's no content, fuck it. Let the structures die. Who cares? Let's go get content elsewhere. So,
well, let me ask you this too, man. Like when I think about low sec and trying to bring this back here to low sec, and we looked at the recent mining changes with the addition of larger rocks to null sec anoms for SOV and that kind of thing. What can somebody do if you're just a little guy? Like I'm part of a low sec group and I want to stay in low sec and I want to mine. I know there's mining anomalies. I'm not too familiar. Talk to me a little bit about what can I do to like make ISK in that low sec space. How does mining interact? Like we're talking about mining changes, kind of the hot topic right now with the recent dev blog that CCP released. Like, what can we do? Like, what changes can happen in that space to motivate some of that? Because roaming low sec, I never really saw. Occasionally, you'd see a procure and a belt or something like that, but never really saw a lot of the big mining fleets that we see out in low sec.
that's a great question. Thanks for asking, because I need to pull up my notes because I literally have a whole little section on this.
Awesome.
Yeah. So the issue, I spoke to a lot of people who mine in low sec. I'm not a miner in low sec. That's not what I do. I used to work mine back and no forks given. We used to have a bunch of Athenors, and we would put works on grid and basically wait to get tackled and have a mini dread brawl over it or a fight over it. It's some of the best content in the game. But that doesn't happen anymore, as you mentioned. And so the suggestions that for, excuse me, I also have a cold, I apologize, is that replacing, like condensing, there's a lot of tiny, basically, okay, let me phrase this. There's a lot of very tiny rocks, right? There's a lot of rocks, so the overall like M3 of the site could be plentiful, but it's very spread out. So instead, we want to condense the rocks to make it like a colossal rock or bigger rocks. So then it incentivizes people more to put works out, you know, instead of having 100K, 50K, 10K, 20K, 30K size rocks, you have like a 500K or a 300K size rocks, and it's 3 of them or something. So then people are more willing to throw works out, fit work chunks, and then you can actually get more fights there. But if you're a smaller group that may not have work uses, still using subcapitals, like barges and stuff, going into quiet low sec areas. So faction warfare spots are just too busy. There's too many people roaming around. So going to like quieter systems or areas like Conid or Genesis, Solitude, places where there's not as much traffic. And if you really want to focus on industry, set up in a base where there's like a low sec, high sec pocket, right? And so you can then move your stuff to Jita and live in low sec and then mine and have those sites there. But there needs to be like a revamp of how the spawns work in low sec. So right now you have like these really shitty Jaspit anomaly sites in every low sec. But instead, like we're suggesting to replace it with like Nesis or Crocite. and they just spawn, because the issue is that you have like these sometimes very, very good or anomaly sites that spawn in high traffic low sec areas. They never get mined because you have 60 people moving in a system all the time or whatever. So you always get scouted. And then the issue there is that you can't mine it. So like refreshing the respawn so they respawn quicker and they don't sit there for 3-4 days as they currently do, and then they just don't get mined. But if you're a small group, go to like a pocket like that, like Boyston to Pertinier, I think is like a very famous one where a lot of smaller groups historically have ended up. Um, Even places like in Genesis or Corazor, there's like tons of areas there where you can definitely set up shop and mine and not really be bothered instead of the busy Fact War areas. So
Yeah, well, Puke, everybody listening, if Puke's telling you to go to these systems, I probably wouldn't, because you end up getting dropped on in a week. We're not responsible if you lose your mining ships, because you took advice here on the Meta Show from Young Puke on where to mine. So
yeah,
please,
don't. Yeah.
come on,
Maybe
man. I mean,
not.
some people
All
are going to
right.
mine there. Maybe not those
I
systems.
mean,
I don't know.
maybe they'll do it. You know, I want to get content.
While you're at it,
Right,
let me
know?
know where you're
maybe.
running
Put that
crab
Rourke in
beacons.
Boyston or in Pertinier. It's fine. No one's gonna drop on you, dude.
That's right. Oh, nobody's going to drop. You heard it here. Hot take. Nobody will drop on you, Low Sec, if you bring your Rourks out and you
Look
mine
like,
quietly in these systems.
dude, I think Shadow Cartel put a workout in Genesis a couple days ago, and Init showed up and fucking killed them. Like, it's great. Like, get more of that. More Rourks in space. Like, let's get Rourks, low sec capital mining again. You know, like it's fun.
Yeah, Shadow Cartel Rourke was mining, because that's not bait.
I think
It wasn't bait. They didn't save him. He died. No one showed up.
Okay. My bad. I'm
think-
corrected.
I think to get more
Ugh.
Rorks in space, though, they need to make excavators great again. That's the big problem. Because nobody wants to put a Rork on grid just to boost and compress. In my opinion, the most expensive, pretty much what was the most expensive drone in the game, should have had no waste. Kind of like all
Yeah.
strip miners, where they don't have waste. The most, like, a drone that at one point was running $1 billion ISK per drone should not have waste. Like, and that would get more Rorks in space across the whole of the game and cause more death and destruction. Or hilarity when Rorks kill an entire bomber fleet, because they can.
Hey, Mark made a good point in chat, though. Like, Orcas, like, somehow filling the gap between the Orca and a Rourke. And I'm cool with, as a PvP, or just ganking a Orca, an Orca. Mark knows that. I've taken out one of his Orcas before I was doing. So I'm cool with just finding an Orca. Actually, I get excited about that. So even being able to see more of those in space would be pretty cool too, as well.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, more in space. Like what Metanoxes were intended to do, I think, was like getting people in space, right? More people shooting them, but they're such a pain in the ass to ref. Like 20 blaster taloses that are polarized still take like 20 minutes to ref a Metanox. But like I just think there has to be more ways to get people undocked in space, shooting each other. Let's go. The game's 20 years old. You don't need to look at your coffers anymore. Like, let's just PvP, right? Like, they need to make things cheaper, like T1 battleships, Navy battleships, dreads, faxes. I think the dread insurance is a good change. They should push it to faxes and carriers. I think they also need to update and expand LP stores, like increase the ways that low sec and even NPC null, which has been totally neglected. Like NPC null guys and girls can like make or ISK so we can just be undocked more PvPing. Like people want that. Like people just want to fight. That's low sec though, not the entire game. I mean, I know wormholers, they're Chad brawlers too. I mean, but they have tons of money that they can make. But it's about getting more people undocked and more content will naturally be created. And if you're a small group, like you can exist and grow in low sec. There's passive income streams, whether it's LP tax, whether it's Metanoxes. Hot take is that I think Metanoxes should cost less in low sec than in null, like for fuel costs. Because if there's more conflict that's being driven, why are the groups that are providing conflict and creating conflict have to pay more for the groups that are just sucking out resources and not creating anything with it? Like, I don't know. That's a very hot take I have, but
That is the hot take, dude.
yeah,
I will
but
say personally, my vision on Metnoxes, I hate Metnoxes. I was ticked off when CCP introduced him in the game. And coming from Cone, you know, you helped us out a little bit with TD Sin and Snuffed Out. We were actively mining those moons, and then all of a sudden we get removed by some auto mining robot, and the big AI Metnoxes took over. So, like, I'm like, hey, you know, I don't like them, but
big
you know,
spot.
I come from a completely different background, right? So
yeah, I mean, I think it needs to be balanced, right? Like, I think if siphons were to come in, and smaller groups can steal, and we can haze bigger groups, and then Count Scary can then like camp all the Metanoxes with 16 Sino alts, right? I think then and they, you drop the people that are trying to scoop up their, I don't know, their Metanox goo. I think there's counterplay to it then. But right now, there's no real big counterplay other than to kill them,
yeah.
which is a problem in my opinion.
I think also on the note of fighting, you mentioned brawling earlier. They nerfed hacks into the ground to change, and it changed the meta from a kiting meta to more of a, Ferox is online essentially again, or
Awful.
ramming battleships interfaces. The issue is, it'd be great because we are in a battleship and Ferox meta again, but they then made changes that made it too damn expensive to constantly be ramming battleships into each other all the time.
Yes.
So you can't do what the meta is. So it brings you down to having to use things like CFIs and Ferox Navy issues rather than seeing the big fights where, 3 battleship fleets smash into 3 battleship fleets and everybody has a shootout at 0.
I have a question. Why can't goons slam battleships into each other all the time? Don't you guys have tons of money?
We do.
If I form battleship,
but
that's what I'm saying. I think if T1 battleships were cheaper, I think we would see goons maybe bring maelstroms, right? Or maybe adopt T1 comps. Like my group, I have 200 heartbeats, right? I use the coupon code to help fund my alliance. Set it saves, by the way. On Marquee Dragon, but and so that's the thing. I just think I think there's ways if CCP cheapens T1 battleships, just slam T1 battleships around.
Yeah.
Right? Brave are using Megathrons, and I just think the desire is there. It's just CCP needs to fucking act on it.
Yeah, I mean, we do.
Caps are so expensive. It's crazy.
We do slam battleships into battleships when we can, but it goes back to the cap problem, to be honest, because a battleship meta also means a capital meta, and if you're fighting under a hostile cap umbrella, then you're not gonna take your battleships because you're just gonna get dunked. And you're not going to take your capitals necessarily unless you're planning a big invasion, because you're going to be on a back foot because you're just forming a cap fleet and going rather than having everybody all amped up for fights.
But the funny thing is, I think a big culture difference is that I don't care how much caps cost. I will find a way for my guys to throw down capitals. We have a guy named Dirty Mike, and this guy is fucking nuts. He will take a Phoenix Navy and just gate to the enemy home staging for no reason. It's 11 bill. He's like, fuck it. Who cares? 11 bill is nothing, right? To him, which is a lot for a lot of people. But that's what I'm saying. You don't need to have a big cap fleet to create content. Gate that Hawdred around, right? Create that content yourself. Gate that T1 Phoenix. Yeet it. Buy it in Tama. Gate it across Low Sec. Gate it across Null. You don't need an FC to hold your hand. You can create that capital content for yourself. Big Miker used to have a fantastic YouTube series. I'm dating myself a little bit here. I don't know if you guys know who Big Miker is, but
I do.
Yeah, right. He would take, I think it was a Nag or Rorqual, and just yeet it. Why are people doing that? Why are people scared?
I think you hit a nail on the head there, though, with the you don't need an FC to hold your hand. A lot of stuff in EVE, be it PvE or PvP, I mean, you look at mining, and a lot of miners want people to hold their hand in nullsec anyway. And it's the same with PvP now. You don't, from a nullsec, corporation leader viewpoint, you don't get a lot of the like small groups that are just going out to have fun. There's a lot of, oh, but we need an FC. I'm not an FC. Where's the screw FCs?
And
Just
yeah,
go have
screw 'em.
fun.
Screw FCs. Go have fun. Right.
FCs
Exact
will be
same.
there if they're needed.
If they're needed.
There's something I think there's something we miss a little bit, and I think maybe I have some side of it. There are people, and there's the ever thing that hangs over everybody's heads is your kill board, though. You know,
Fuck
people
killboard.
sometimes get a little afraid, and I think this drives from a content standpoint when it comes to blocks too. Maybe why an FC is less likely to throw a battleship fleet. If I feed 30 battleships, somebody else is going to look at that and be like, "Oh, these guys suck. Let me just go camp their space." You know what I mean? So there is a little bit of element to that, I believe, when it's an individual who's operating. Not everybody has Dirty Mike and the boys to go roam a Phoenix Navy to the staging, though. So
I really don't care if I feed a battleship fleet. Some people may, if I do it too many times, but like it's not the most expensive fleet I've ever lost stupidly, and it probably won't ever be the most expensive fleet I've lost stupidly.
But think like as alliance leaders and as leaders in the game or whatever, super cringe call it saying that, but like you got to encourage that culture yourself, right? Like we should tell our live members, if you want to gate that Hoth Phoenix, brother, you gate it. You lose it, fuck it. We'll SRP it. It's 6 bill. It's nothing, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's an in-game culture that we as a community can then say, yeah, your Z kill doesn't really fucking matter. You're at a party with your girlfriend. Nobody cares, dude. It's just some sweaty 40-year-old dudes on the internet that care, right? Like enjoy your time playing the game. And yeah, like I fed like 2 weeks ago 300 bill in dreads. Next thing I did, I SRP'd all the dreads, and I'm like, guys, we're fucking going again, right? That's sort of the mentality you need to have. It's like you don't want to be coy, but it comes from the players itself, and that's nothing that CCP can fix. Like established FCs need to also sometimes just step aside and let new blood grow the game. It's another topic, but like it's the same idea, right? Like you need new people to grow, and so Eve grows. But yeah, I totally agree with you, Dave.
That is something I have always thought, because when the war in Dow started, all the experienced FCs were already burnt out, so it just left us newer people to pick up the pieces. So it is the responsibility of every FC to teach the newer people if they're able to be taught. There are some people that you just can't teach. Like,
well,
there
Dave,
you know,
we were talking about feeding fleets, Dave. You know, when you feed a fleet, though, you just like build ships and then sell it back to everybody. So you're like making
I do
money.
not build battleships.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
It's
But yeah, it's I agree with the whole go have fun essentially. Maybe not the will SRP it, because I don't want people turning around to like Atrium and going, Dave said on the Meta Show we'll get SRP. Have fun with your ships is the big thing.
And go to Low Sec.
Caveat before somebody quotes me again:
like
Titans and Supers are different, but
of course.
but
it's like if you want to buy a dread, we will sell you a dread in Amamake. You can undock it, yeet it, go have fun. You know, I mean, yeeting. I mean, like you gate it. You're not actually taking an filament, right? But like gate it across Low Sec. There's plenty of builders that will sell you caps and low, so you can purchase it. There's this guy, I forgot his name. I think it was affiliated with Boss. He was just this drop a Phoenix Navy randomly in Low Sec every once a month. It was great. Created lots of content and fights for a 10 bill ship.
One thing
and
I
people
do,
started donating a MISP.
One thing I do
forgot
miss
his name.
is the days of capital roams, when capitals were cheap enough that you just pinged, say it was your birthday. I've actually done this several times. Say it's your birthday and you've gone, you know what? Let's take carriers and dreads and just go to Valhalla. You can't really do that anymore. And that's something that used to be quite fun. But people need a...
Why can't you?
Why?
Politics.
Killboard, man. It's back to the killboard, dude.
Also, a lot of people that own these ships don't necessarily have the IS to replace them.
That's true. But I think goons, in their kindness, can cover a young scout's dread. You know, like I think they can, like, or their corp, make it a corp thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
if every person, and you have 60 people in your corp that are active, everyone donates 100 mil. New bread,
Yeah.
done. When Dirty Mike, God bless his name, you know, lost his Phoenix, TJ, he couldn't afford a sub, and he was ungating some dreads. Our alliance just gave him some ISK. That's what alliance mates are for, to help each other out. You don't need to. Excuse me, Mr. SRP director. Can I have SRP? No, ask your friends. Create content with each other. Fuck it. It's a game.
Hey, real quick though, Puke. There is a question in the chat specifically to you. No, you're good, man. I love the discussion. How do small gang faction warfare groups grow into like mid-size? I consider Sedition, your group there, a mid-size group. Those groups goes further on to say these groups don't have access to capitals like bigger groups and are often stifled by mid to large groups. Like, what are your thoughts on that question there?
Fantastic question. Two big things. That is, even before, you need a good team. You need about 2-3 people to start out with that are dedicated with a goal. Like figuring out who you're gonna work with. You can't shoulder it on your own. And for example, like we have like 10 people in leadership basically. They're doing various things because I can't do it all. It's just impossible. And you need to develop that core team and develop it across time, and it gets bigger and bigger as you grow. The other thing is, like, what type of fac war group do you want to be? Faction warfare, people think this is fac war. Well, what is fac war to you? Is it the capitals? Is it small gang fights? Is it 20v20 fights? Is it slamming battle cruisers into each other? That will sort of ask you sort of questions like what your identity wants to be in fac war will help guide you to how do you market yourself as a group, create those e-forum posts, e-Reddit posts, and start building a narrative. Like Fleet does a really good job with their propaganda. You know, like what are you selling? Like as an alliance executor, you're not just an alliance leader, but you're a salesman. An FC, you're a salesman. What are you selling content-wise that we provide that other groups do not provide, or that we provide it differently that is similar to other groups? And like that's sort of how I phrase it. Like what I offer and what Bear offers are similar but different types of content, right? What Big AB, Snuff, and Shadow Cartel offer are similar but different types of content. Or the groups are different, the cultures are different. Who do you fit in with? And that sort of helps you build how you mold your alliance, because you're going to have a lot of turnover in the beginning. People that are just not going to fit in. You're going to have leadership that are going to butt heads. And you're going to have corps come and leave and go until that ethos is sort of solidified. A really good example of this is Conifers, right? Like Conifers exploded in Declan, right? Was it Declan, Keith? Am I crazy? Declan.
No, I mean, if you ask me regions and Eve, dude, I get lost all the time. I have a badge on my proof. Like, I don't know where I'm going.
It was the Fey Declan War when
Yeah,
Conifers. Yeah. Like it was. I mean,
no, Guardians of the Galaxy left and fell apart wherever they were.
Yeah. And so like that's when I mean, there's a storied history with Conifers, but just using him as an example, like Darius like molded everything, and it was like the identity. When you think of Darius, I just think of Ravens. Now it's the first thought pops in my head, and using Ravens and Triage and Dread, and like that was sort of this ethos or identity or culture that they molded behind him, and you have to do the same thing as a smaller group when you grow up. So like, what type of content do you provide and do? What is your ethos? What is your identity? How do you grow? And then as you grow, you know, there'll be hiccups along the way, but I mean, we've had plenty of hiccups, but like, but as long as you're having fun and you're creating content and you don't burn out, your alliance will still continue to grow. Like, and it's when you have fun, because at the end of the day, people want to play with players that are enjoying themselves, they are having fun, and as long as you recruit well, you form an identity, and you build your income with LP tax, the most amazing thing in the whole world. Running battlefields is fantastic income source too. And ice heists. Your line members will be having enough ISK in their wallets, and people will play for you. That was a very long answer. I hope that was helpful. And if you if you have more questions though, DM me. Like I want more low sec groups. I miss the age of Low Sec Prime where you had conifers. I mean, you had Shoot First, you had Dock Workers, you had, oh fuck, I'm forgetting, LSH when they were more alive, when you had Jutsu, when you had all these fucking Low Sec groups. But right now, there's not as many, and so I encourage people to come to Low Sec. And if you need help and guidance, I can do the best that I can. And I bet other Low Sec leaders like Crimson or Alexander Blast or Bear or, fuck, even High, maybe not High, but, people generally want people to help other people out.
I
But
think
don't
You
think
heard it
anybody's
here.
100% right.
Blow up YoungPuke's DMs with how to grow your alliance. But what I take away from that, honestly, though, Puke, is saying like, hey, you got to create, you kind of carve out a niche for yourself. Do something really well, like really good. It's kind of like in the real world. If you're building a business, like you got to do something unique. You can't just be a cookie cutter of everybody else and expect to grow something. But find a niche for yourself and like grow into that. Maybe that's use Low Sec or be great at Low Sec and do that. So I think it's great advice to take from that.
I'd say it's the same thing with a lot. That's advice really that you could put into a lot of Eve. Anything you do in Eve, especially if you're trying to lead people, like you see it a lot with FCs. Every FC has their thing, So like in Goons, you got Tetra Kill, who is like the "I'm gonna kill your capital," and then you got Apple, who's the structure shooter extraordinaire. It's everybody has their thing, and whenever somebody tries to copy someone else, it doesn't normally work. So you need to find your part, and it's the same for corps and alliances and everything. If everyone's just a carbon copy of each other, there's nothing unique. There's no point.
Yeah, and I think that's the coolest thing is the whole identity. I think that's where we're chiming in on. Yeah,
I think as no, you're good, man. You're good. You're our guest today. You can talk over me like 1,500 times if you want to. The last question I do want to touch on as we kind of come to time here in the last 10 minutes. Anything you can share with us on the CSM side of thing? I know you have an NDA, and there's probably a lot of stuff that you've heard or whatever that you can't share with us. Anything you can share? Anything our viewers can take away from this? Like, hey, cool. I heard it here from Puke.
I think that it is a really good sign that Okami is willing to engage with the community head on. I think for a long time, and I personally have been pushing this, I think CCP's messaging to our communities have been very poor. It feels very like government-esque, like behind closed doors even. And I think more transparency, more dev blogs, being more open about their process, even if they feel that they're going to be pushed back upon, is really necessary to get players back and to rebuild trust between the communities from low sec, null sec, high sec, everybody in the game at large. I think that is a very, very important first step. And I think a lot of people don't understand how big of a big step that dev blog was. The last time we had a dev blog like that was 2012. It feels like. And if they are more transparent and there's more interaction with the community, I mean, Okami's responding to threads, and he's a lead game designer of EVE Online in Discord. Who the fuck is doing that, right? Like, that is great. That is good. That's interaction. They're talking to players. It's not just come to FanFest, we'll chat there. This is actually part of like what I'm doing day to day. I think that is a really good sign, and that is something we have to take away. And hopefully that means they'll make better changes and take ownership for their mistakes.
Yeah, 100%. I will say Eve is the one game I play or have played where you constantly see the devs, even not just the community guys, the people that get down to the nitty-gritty of the programming actually interacting, be it in person, whether they're having a drink with you at FanFest or something, or just popping up on a Discord somewhere. There's so many Discords out there for Eve, and it could be a completely random one. INN's Discord's got several CCP staff members on it, and they will just join in the conversation, which I think is great. Whether they're listening, who knows? But they're there, and they're really approachable. It's what
I haven't been able to release my CSM presentation, but I felt heard and respected the entire time.
If they didn't want me to hear me yap about low sec and faction warfare, they would have told me to shut the fuck up by now. Like whenever there's a chance to advocate, and that's where all the CSM, like we advocate as much as we can to put our our like community's interests like in front line, right? It's not like, oh, we're gonna buy all this shit or anything like that. No, it's literally like these are the issues that people are having. Fix these issues, the game gets better, right? Like, and it takes time and it's effort and it's like, it's a process. And some of these issues that you mentioned, like as we've talked about, some faction warfare issues have been asked for like a decade, and so it can be very difficult at times. But I feel like the Okami letter is just such a step in the right direction, and I cannot understate like how important it is to actually feel that we're feels like we're going somewhere, like we're getting somewhere. I don't know.
I hope so, man. He's been around for a long time, been a big part of my life, and I know, don't want to speak for Dave, but I'm sure with Dave as well. So love to see it thrive, and I've met some of my best friends on this game, so hopefully CCP keeps driving it in the right direction.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Yep.
We are unfortunately out of time though. Unless was there something you were about to say? I'll let you finish what you were starting.
Yeah. I was saying, Keith, you got to come to E Vegas, dude. We're gonna go 2025 October. You're gonna go?
Yeah.
Dave,
no, I can
you
do
should
that.
come.
Easy.
Dude, I've been to
Oh,
easy,
yeah,
easy.
I've been to like 5 E Vegases. You've probably ran
Let's
into
meet
me
in E
before.
Vegas, boys.
Dude.
Make it
Number
6.
6.
So yeah, I may be there if I can afford it. Same as I said before with FanFest, maybe
Up
there
your
if I can
alliance
do it.
mates, dude. SRP, dude. Whatever, Go
right.
fund me.
Oh,
Sorry.
No, I can't do it. So last year I got to the DC meet because one of my friends just went, "I've bought you a plane ticket." I was like, okay. Anyway,
There you go.
we have unfortunately ran out of time. YoungPuke, I'd like to thank you for coming. This has actually been quite a interesting talk, and we've touched on a lot of things, and hopefully invigorated some people to get out there and do stuff.
Just do something.
Bam Puke.
Yeah.
DM him right now.
Yeah, if you need advice though, like if you're a small group looking to go to Low Sec and you want to grow, my DMs are open. So don't send me fucking feed pics, but
You've just said that in front of like almost 100 games.
That's fine, dude. Maybe they'll send me
Probably gonna
bee
get feet
pictures. It's more
pics.
acceptable.
So, as I said at the start, please help us improve our content. First of all, we have a survey for the co-hosts. So let us know what you think of Keith on the show. As I can see, all of our friends are in this chat. What you thought of him as the co-host? And also, what you would like to see on INN. We have a lot of stuff that we can provide, a lot of stuff we can stream. We can do all sorts of different community stuff with members, even Eve community stuff, or other games. So let us know in that form. But that is all from me. And that is all from these guys. So until next time, bye-bye.